Today, we're going to be talking about customer onboarding of information from different data sources and how we can sort of automate that whole process to make both us and our clients' lives much easier. So client data onboarding in general is the idea of getting data from customers, and it's one of the most important and overlooked steps in the customer onboarding process. Think of this sort of onboarding and ingestion as the same thing. When we speak about both, they're sort of synonymous. But we're basically introducing data from a new source into an existing system or process. So we have like an established sort of pipeline, and we basically want to add another source or a new tap into this data process. This data is often from a new client or customer. And the idea is that this process can be repeated for many clients. So more or less, we're going to have the same process established for all of our clients, but there's often a small variance or nuance between these different clients. And basically considerations that we need to take for each individual client as we sort of integrate into this more holistic target system. So today we're sort of going to be walking through what that looks like, a couple of different use cases that we've done for some of our clients, and how that all sort of comes back around to help our business as a whole, and how we can sort of change that process to be a lot more flexible, give us less headaches on both the technical and business side, and provide a lot more value for us and our clients. Now, sort of we want to go into the reasoning of why we're doing this in general. The idea is that let's reduce the burden on our clients and customers, right? Let's have a flexible, open format that doesn't force our clients into using specific formats that maybe they're unfamiliar with, right? So think, for example, we might have an application that receives data in, API format natively, and that's great. But what if we have, when I say API, I mean like JSON or something like that. But let's say maybe we have customers that are more used to and accustomed to using something like Excel. Let's not force them into using something they're not comfortable with. Another part of this is the idea of empowering less technical staff to operate and manage these things. We don't need a full stack developer to manage this whole process, right? That saves us both time, effort, and money throughout this process if we have maybe less technical colleagues managing these processes. Something that we need to consider as well is designing for resilience. So like I said before, we're going to have variability in input format, client by client and day by day. So we need to operate with assumptions that we're going to have some curveballs thrown at us, and we need to be ready to sort of manage those on a day-to-day basis. We need to automate the detection and arrival of data to onboard. Let's not wait around for this data to come in. Let's be sort of proactive and ready for when it arrives to the input location. Let's be ready to process. And that's sort of part of this is orchestrating an end-to-end onboarding process. So from the first step where we receive data from the client to the last one where we're able to inform them that we received the data correctly in the right format and everything's as it should be. We also want to provide robust reporting as part of that. But also a huge part of this is having the ability to handle errors and retries when ingestion isn't done, 100% complete. A huge part of this is reusability. So the idea of, hey, we have this base process established, but hey, we have a new client signing up to onboard data with us. Let's not have to design an entirely new pipeline and process. Let's stick to that base process and be able to use it for many different clients. That's a huge key point that really changes how we think about data onboarding and data ingestion. We're moving away from thinking about things on a point-to-point integration, like, hey, let's build a pipeline for this client and a pipeline for client B and a pipeline for client C. Let's think in terms of holistic frameworks that can handle anything that we throw at it. We'll save a lot of time, money, and effort in that process. And sort of, as exemplified here, when we have a really great product that a lot of people want to use, we're going to have a growth of our client base, right? Now, onboarding those clients, if we have a point-to-point integration system, right, our onboarding costs will quickly balloon because we have an engineering team or a data engineering team that we're going to need to scale. Let's say whether we're onboarding 5 clients or 100 clients, that quickly balloons the scale of the data engineering team that we need to maintain this process. Meanwhile, if from the start we really start thinking of a holistic framework that can handle anything we throw at it, we could adopt a smarter onboarding process and quickly grow our client base while minimizing the sort of costs from the beginning, right? The initial effort might be a little bit more, but in the long term, it really pays dividends as far as how we think about our data engineering team and the resources that we're allocating to it, right? Let's grow in a much smarter fashion rather than just throwing resources at it and wasting, effort and money in the process. This is all coming from the context of CloverDX. CloverDX is a data management platform made up of two different pieces. We have an IDE to design jobs where we sort of design, test, debug, and collaborate in a nice little sort of data engineering environment. And then we have the server, which is where we sort of automate, orchestrate, publish, and scale this to a full enterprise level data management solution. The idea here is we're able to take any sort of data source, so think of traditional batch files, APIs, messages, structured to unstructured data, and sort of integrate it in any way, in any place as well. So it can be self-hosted in the cloud, on-prem, hybrid, containerization, or physically in person. And we scale both vertically in terms of cores, so we can sort of scale out the how much data throughput we're pushing through the system, and horizontally as far as nodes for things like high availability and failover. So the idea here is we're basically able to take any sort of data source, push it to any data target. And in the context of this webinar, we're thinking specifically, how do we onboard client data from new sources into a sort of holistic target. We also have a large services arm where we sort of help sort of sit down with clients, potential clients, and help you deliver any project on time. We have on-demand training that includes self-paced online classes to cover basics, as well as live remote classes and in person as well. With product support that helps you sort of get to your ideal data scenario. We'll sit down, talk you through, hey, I'd like to onboard clients this way, or I'd like a system that does X, Y, and Z. Give us your requirements, and we'll walk you through, either how to build it yourself, or we ourselves can also deliver on collaborative consulting engagements as well. So we sort of meet you where you're at technically, whether you have a very technical team that's very eager to do it yourselves, or maybe a less technical team that wants a turnkey solution. We're able to sort of meet you where you're at. In this webinar, we're going to be looking at 3 real-world data onboarding examples. The first one in the context of a law case management system. So onboarding clients to a case management system for different firms, for example. The second one being an education use case, where we're collecting operational data from K through 12 schools. And the third one coming from fintech, we're adding clients to a consumer debt collection platform. These are 3 real world use cases with real clients that we've built out and helped in the past. So the first one's case number 1. We're onboarding clients into a legal case management system. And remember, this is all in the context of data onboarding and data integration. We do a lot more than that here at Clover, but today we're focusing more on these specific use cases. This specific objective of this case management system was handling new data in a variety of formats. Again, we can't really predict how people are going to submit data to this platform, but we need either way to land incoming data into a relational database. So we're not really sure what the source systems are going to be, but in the end, the target's going to be relational DB with no prior knowledge of input file formats. We need to auto detect and create metadata and generate them dynamically, and not have any transformations. In this case, we're just going to land at the staging tables, think of a data lake, and we need to simplify the retry process in general. We first build a base onboarding process that basically we're fetching a file to onboard, determining the file structure. So we're sort of able to say, hey, this incoming CSV file will have 75 columns. Here's what the metadata looks like. And we're going to create a target DB table in the data lake to match that incoming data file. We're going to load that incoming data, archive the ingested file, and update an ingest log, sort of, to unify both the technical parts of this process. We're going to do the actual data integration, but also find a way to inform, more business users, more functional groups on, hey, this is submitted successfully. We successfully onboarded this client in general. Now, this is sort of like, think of a business diagram or data flow diagram. But it's really easily translated over to our technical based onboarding process, right? This is what this looks like in our tool. The base component's the same. We're going to list input files, filter them, create that metadata, create and load the table, update and ingest an audit log in a human readable format. In this case, it's a spreadsheet. But as you can see, sort of between the two, we're quickly able to take business requirements and logical flow diagrams and create, using our components, a functional real life data integration example, right? So that's what the base onboarding process looks like in general. Detect what this file looks like, create the metadata for that target table, create and load that table. Beyond that, we wanted to add support for logging and retries. So we can sort of iteratively go through and integrate new pieces that we want as the requirements develop and change, right? So in this case, we need to fetch a file to onboard. And the first thing is just even understanding, hey, a file could end up at this location, but is this something that we really want to ingest? If not, we'll skip it. Generate the metadata off the bat and create the target DB table while also determining the file structure. Load the incoming data, and then again, is this successful? Log errors, if not, retry and archive the ingested file. So we basically need to add a process for that. Let's say this table was, 50% loaded for some reason, and there was some sort of file error. We're able to have a robust process to go through and retry this without having to submit over and over or have this done many times. And again, this is sort of the iteration, right, that we're able to go through and add support. This is what it looks like within our tool. We're going to list the input files, filter them, see if a file has already been processed. So we're also comparing to what we've already processed. So in the case of retries, we're not duplicating our work. Ignoring the already processed files, see if metadata already exists. If it doesn't, we'll create it. And then create and load tables, archive successfully, and update our ingest log. So over time, the complexity and robustness of all these data pipelines and ingestion engines develop to fit the needs of our clients, right? So as we go through this process iteratively, we're able to sort of discover different needs, both from a business and data engineering perspective, and marry them all to a single platform and single job that handles all of this. Which is really great, really sort of a game changer for a lot of our clients, specifically this one. They could manage everything from a single pipeline. Business-wise, this completely changed and automated so they can access any kind of data and load into a data lake without any sort of user interaction. We sort of are bypassing any possible user error and just having files land in an area where they can be processed automatically. At the same time, this job provides the means to adjust auto-detected configuration as needed and rerun the job. So we're able to sort of help support in case the job run failed for any reason. We can sort of adjust and auto-detect configurations as needed in real time. It's super easy to maintain and process since there's no complex transformation. We're just taking things from a stage, adding them to a data lake, ingesting automatically. And in this case, onboarding clients into a case management system. So there's really no need for really skilled developers. We don't need a full stack developer walking us through this. We can sort of manage this all from our parent process as business users from that perspective. So simplifies things a lot and makes things a lot easier for everyone involved. Case number 2, we're collecting operational data from K through 12 schools. This is from a sort of school grade system you can think of. In this case, we had a legacy implementation that tried to do a lot of this job, a lot of this work. And basically what happened would we have schools, each individual school would send flat files periodically throughout the day via an FTP site. The files are accepted, validated, and pushed via API to a downstream process to onboard into their sort of parent application or target application. The input formats can vary by school, and it's basically a bespoke system implemented in Python and managed by a lot of data engineers from their point, right? So there's a pretty large technical debt and load consistently being dealt with day to day, ingesting, many times a day for many different schools and many different formats. And it's very difficult for a non-technical team to manage that onboarding and ingest, right? you're gonna have to, phone into a data management team or data engineering team to say, hey, what's going on in this process? And it's very difficult to sort of, as a business user, get an idea of even what's going on, right? A problem again with this sort of legacy implementation is once your business users are very used to, getting a certain process down, it's very difficult for them to change or, for them to go from one format to the next. And each one has their own sort of unique characteristics when it comes to how they handle their data. So we need to be able to plan for all that, right? So that's why this particular client came to us for this implementation. And we made a new onboarding framework. We're going to monitor an FTP site for incoming files, as well as monitor an email box for incoming files, and say, hey, some of their users were very used to just emailing this off and forgetting about it, weren't interested in uploading to an FTP site. So rather than try to force them and pigeonhole them to a certain approach, we'll say, okay, that's fine. You can email it to an inbox. We're still gonna, pick them up from there and push them into an FTP site with everything else, have a unified sort of platform. And we can orchestrate an entire ingestion process, right? We can copy from an FTP site, unzip files that are zipped, do a sanity check for data quality, transform them into our target system, and push that to the legacy API system that we're used to functioning in, right? We need to easily handle school-specific special cases, right? While also supporting reusability. So we don't want to make a new pipeline for every new school. We need to have sort of a maintainable solution that will take care of all these different use cases from the existing teams, right? So this is sort of, a lot of considerations to go through when you're trying to completely change how you ingest data from all your different, in this case, clients, but these are peers, fellow schools pushing data to this one system. Again, we made a base onboarding process. We're getting files from an FTP, confirming the expected files, doing data quality checks, so making sure that everything's clean before we ingest, and executing optional transformations. This is a key part. Like I said before, every school has their own nuances. Some of the nuances involved with some of those schools involve transforming data in certain formats, and each one may be different. So we need to be able to execute them based on the school, understanding school A's process looks like this, and there's this sort of transformation. Schools B process looks like this, and we need to transform, fields 5, 6, and 7. At the end, though, we're going to upload these new files to an API, update an ingest log along the way. So the nuances need to be sort of built in for all these different schools. How do we do this? We had each school, because they have different business rules, configure their specific rules via an Excel document that they can pass around, right? Sort of rather than make them write out and do these optional transformations in our ETL tool, we just said, hey, fill out this nice little Excel sheet. What do you want me to do? You want me to remove bad characters? You want me to enable it? Or, give me an aggregation of student roster enrollment by period? Give them a list of possible transformations. And each school can enable or disable them as needed. But for them, it's very sort of easy, human readable, super easy to ingest, and get an idea of exactly what they want, right? These rules implement custom filtering, mapping, aggregations. At the end, we're able to, as schools submit these Excel documents in these sort of configuration files, we can adjust each one of the different pipelines to their specific needs, so that we're running this all from a base onboarding process that looks exactly the same. The only nuance and difference is what optional transformations they have running on their side. And it's completely adjustable to them. So we give business users the ability to express what they need, and our system will provide as needed, which is really great and really help the quality of life in general of this particular school system. Again, we're sort of doing this via FTP triggering, right? So we're going to check an FTP for incoming files, reformat, and then each of the school processes, right? This parent job will do all of them, but we're going to use that configuration file to change how we process each different school, and then do ingestion and logging and summaries in a nice human readable format in a spreadsheet that we can email across and say, hey, everything was fine, or hey, maybe this failed, here's why. and just make it a lot easier from the business perspective. Again, these are supposed to be non-technical colleagues of theirs that are managing this. So let's try to make it as easy as possible for them to go through this. Overall, as a business, we replaced a complex Python-based solution with a solution that's a lot easier to maintain and extend. So as new schools come into the system, as this grows in general, we've saved them a lot of development time to introduce new people into the platform without having to double down or triple down on our efforts. This robust platform with full monitoring makes supporting a lot easier and more efficient. The data delivery is now a lot more reliable, right? We have a automated framework that will get this data into that target API system reliably every single time. And the onboarding of new customers, in this case, it's a new school. Each customer can deliver data in their own formats without any extra development. Like I said earlier, it's a lot easier to conform to our user base and give them the option to continue doing what they've been doing for the last 5 or 10 years, rather than force them to adopt a new process, right? We're going to meet you where you're at, grab data as needed, and you don't have to worry about the rest, which is really great. In the end, they end up very happy with this, are using it every day, and are continually onboarding new school systems and new schools in general to this approach. Now, last use case number 3, we're adding clients to consumer debt collection program platform. For this particular objective, similar to the last one, we want to eliminate barriers for customer acquisition. This is a very aggressive growth company, and they were growing very quickly. But again, this made their data engineering team balloon pretty quickly as far as doubling down, tripling down, quadrupling down on efforts. Their idea is just give us your data. We'll figure out the format. We don't want to make it harder for you to, pay us money to do things for you. So let's meet you where you're at. And we need the ability to tolerate week-to-week variances in any given client's data, minimizing onboarding time and costs, and provide simple mechanisms for their onboarding team, right? Similar to the last example, we're going to use Excel-based configuration files for each client to establish business and data transformation rules that will run this data ingestion process with. Again, we're going to have a base onboarding process. The idea is, let's fetch a file from an FTP site. This is the ideal scenario, right? Determine the file type and structure. Look at client-specific mapping and transformation rules. So those are the Excel files that I mentioned earlier. Read and transform the incoming file. But there's a nuance here in that we want to also be able to accept data from a web app. So let's say we run through this and it fails. We want to be able to retry through a web application, or let's say someone feels more comfortable submitting data through a web application. Let's give them the ability to sort of give us their data ad hoc, right? So yes, we can upload to an FTP site, but also we can use a nice little web app to retry data or submit from the first time, right? At the end, we're going to write this transform file to an FTP site and update our ingestion log so they can, onboard their client successfully in a couple different ways. This is an example of the file conversion instructions that's stored in Excel. Again, we're giving them nice human readable, business user friendly things. For example, we have a target field called due date. We need a conversion rule where it's going to convert it to a date. And it must be formatted in the specific format. Basically, our ingestion pipeline will intake this Excel file along with the raw data and run these transformation rules to perfect it so that we can onboard it onto our debt collection platform much quicker, faster, more efficient without any errors, right? And same idea sort of follows for, we'll have this process go through, no problem. But if something goes wrong, we also have on-demand reprocessing or processing. We provided web app using CloverDX data apps to give an application that's accessible to business users without having to go through, any sort of, more technical platform. We provide input. They provide us with input files. They trigger the processing and review the output to make sure everything's right. So we just have them upload the client input file, the raw data, along with that rules file that I showed you guys earlier, their version of that. Give us the file type, the client name, and boom, it'll be onboarded automatically that way as well. So both ad hoc and collecting from an FTP site, we're able to sort of continually ingest data no matter what. As far as positive impact to our business, there's no need to tie expensive technical staff to doing the configuration data process for each new client. The business rep can do it via the web app. So we're not investing huge amounts of, again, full stack developers to configuring data processes. Let's let the business people do it and run processes on demand without, allocating too many resources. This provides for easier onboarding of new customers. They don't need to conform to specific data layout. They can, sort of use whatever they already have. And the Ingestion framework will handle the differences between these as needed, right? We can reject files and say, hey, please take a look at this and give us a new configuration file or run alternatives as well. So really, this has made ingestion much easier for this specific debt collection platform. Key takeaways from all three of these. For a nice, simple data ingestion process that gets you exactly to where you need end-to-end orchestration. From the time this file arrives, however it may arrive, you need to consider how to automate this and orchestrate it so that it's following the nuances of each different client's needs. But at the end result is something that's human readable, that we can easily audit, ingest, and understand from a business perspective to get an idea of exactly what's going on. We also need to handle variations in input file formats, be flexible, meet them where they're at, and be able to, build robust data pipelines that will not fail on us. We also need to empower non-technical users to manage, our onboarding process. Let's take less technical resources. We do this using configuration file-driven pipelines. Let's fill out an Excel file, tell us how to run, and we'll do the rest, as well as web application controllers that make this sort of easier for us to work with in processing and reprocessing, along with robust reporting that lets us know from a business perspective exactly what's going on at all times. So that's sort of end-to-end orchestration reporting, thinking of the what ifs and best case scenarios to create, again, that ideal data scenario where we're seamlessly ingesting data from whatever source whenever needed, right?